Welcome to the Corona Shift, the podcast that explores the changing landscape of Canadian performance art during the coronavirus outbreak. The world is but a stage? Not anymore, sucker. You butt's not... Sorry. We're canceled. We're closed. Each week I chat with a different guest about their experiences in isolation and how they're adapting to the transition from the stage to the online world. This is going to be a great show. We'll have comedians, drag artists, magicians, burlesque performers, strippers. That's right. We're the only podcast in the world that has strippers. Join us each week until this whole crazy pandemic is over, because I know you're locked up and you've got nothing better to do. And neither do I, really. That's why I'm doing this. I mean, I'm bored. It's been weeks since I've been outside. Somebody help me. Welcome to the Corona Shift, the show that nobody asked for, like Meg White's sex tape or the film adaptation of the musical Cats. Seriously, though, that movie was the ugliest thing to happen to musical comedy since Susan Boyle. I mean, it was the most tragic thing to happen to Andrew Lloyd Webber since prostate cancer. That Cats movie was the saddest thing to happen to cats since Joe Exotic. Oh my God, we've all seen Tiger King, right? What a train wreck. Nothing is certain in this world except death, taxes, and that bitch Carol Baskin definitely fed her husband to the cats. Which side are you on? Are you Team Carol or Team Joe? You know what? I'm Team Saf. That dude was like the only really decent person in the entire series, and he was misgendered and deadnamed throughout the whole documentary. I just read that Joe Exotic's first husband, John Finlay, you know, the guy we so lovingly refer to as Meth Mouth, he took that Netflix money.
Got it back and fix my teeth. Hope you girls know it ain't cheap.
But just to set the record straight, I don't care. Hot take, dude was always hot. What else is in the news? Gay blood is okay now in the US, and all it took was a pandemic crisis. Come the fuck on. This whole pandemic situation has really just demonstrated how cartoonishly absurd the United States is. I mean, am I the only one seeing how much of a hypocrisy this is? I can't. I really can't. So they've currently eased blood donor restrictions on gay men from 1 year of celibacy, that's right, 1 year, to 3 months, which, let's be honest, is way too long for anyone to wait without sex, especially gay people. I'm sorry, but as a resident gay, I gotta tell you, queer sex is just too good to go without. And I think you know that, America, and I think you're jealous. Anyways, we've got a great show today. I talked with Greg Brown, whose YouTube channel ASAP Science covers current scientific events in a very entertaining way. After we recorded this, I immediately went out and beefed up my social media presence. On Greg's recommendation, I downloaded TikTok, and now I spend about an hour a day watching a monkey play with bubbles. Anyways, here's my chat with Greg Brown. Welcome to the Corona Shift, the podcast that asks performers how they're getting by when the bars are all closed and the shows are all canceled. I'm Alice Rose, and joining me today is an incredibly wonderful, amazing and hilarious and intelligent and brilliant man. He produces ASAP Science on YouTube with his husband. Please welcome to the show, Greg Brown.
Thank you. Warm words. Wow.
I'm such a fan.
Oh, thank you.
I really am. Yeah.
I love how you said my husband. I'm not married, but technically, I guess Mitch is my husband. I mean, we live together. But
yes.
Do we give off married vibes?
You give off strong married vibes.
We
yes,
do. Oh my God,
you do.
So I literally do not want to get married. I am against marriage. But I'm glad that we give off those vibes, I guess. God.
I feel that. I'm very much the same. I'm like, especially being queer, I love that people are getting married. I love that people are doing it and taking advantage of those rights that we should have had all of this time. But like, it's not my thing.
And oh my God, it's like being queer, that's the luxury that we have, is that we don't have to do that. You know what I mean? It's like, why would you want that?
Right.
Ever since I've decided to not get married, I truly think it is one of the best decisions of my life. Like every time a wedding comes around, it's awful. People lose friends. Everyone's stressed. The night ends.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And then it's like, oh, you just spent all that money anyways.
All that money. And then all of the events leading up to the wedding.
And not to mention if a pandemic gets in the way. Oh.
Right. I was just thinking that today because my monthly shows that we produce are just postponed, like they're canceled. And then when July or June or whenever it picks up, we'll just go back to like, we'll do our June show or our July show. But people who have big things like weddings, like imagine, I just thought of this, funerals. What if somebody passes away during this pandemic? How do you I
know.
Right
now they're allowing funerals to have like more people than usual. Like, you know, they're like getting less and less people they're allowing to conglomerate. They're allowing like 10 people at funerals and stuff. But yeah, that's a sad part about living through a pandemic.
That's
crazy.
True. That's
but
true.
Weddings, I have less sympathy for. I'm like, you know, that's why you should never have one.
Yeah.
I have more sympathy. I famously have more sympathy for funerals than for weddings.
Mm-hmm. I just, weddings are icky, or funerals are icky. I can't help it. They're just funerals. So contrived, I feel. I don't know.
I know. I hate like death is such a dark and important thing, and then you end up like at a church, like doing a church service. It's like, this is the last thing I ever wanted to do while I was alive. Like, I'm dead. Please don't honor me there.
At a church with like tacky furniture and
like a priest or whoever's never met you.
Yeah, and everybody just like, we don't want this to be a sad occasion. We want to remember them and, you know, celebrate their life. I'm like, no, mourn me, bitch. I'm dead, you better cry.
I was like so happy, because not so happy, but like up until about the age of 19, I was like, I'm young enough that if I die, maybe my parents could make a case that Celine Dion could like come and like serenade the audience. But now that I'm like 30, I'm like, oh God, there's no way they can make that case. It's not gonna happen. Right. It's like, I wish I could die young enough that Celine Dion maybe would come.
Yeah, you're not enough of a charity case anymore.
No.
Oh, that's tragic. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, you're a YouTube star, so maybe that would be a good case. I don't know
if that's going to get me much on the funeral part, but we'll see.
Are any of us as famous as we believe we are? I don't know.
I know.
Don't know. Yeah, so let's talk. Obviously, we're in a bit of a pandemic situation. You know, the world is rapidly changing. It's ever changing day by day. How are you doing during all of this?
Thank you for asking. So actually, Mitch and I were in Los Angeles until about 16 days ago. I know this because I've been counting my quarantine days. I've been locked away for 16 days. So we were in LA, and when it got really bad, and then we were like, okay, we need to come back to Toronto. Like, essentially what we do online is we make videos explaining science. So we were really tapped into like what was going on with coronavirus and like SARS-CoV-2, as it is technically called, the virus. And so I was like, they're not testing people here. Like, I started to get really scared, and I was like, we need to leave. So we were planning to be in LA until yesterday, actually. But then we were like, we need to get out of here. Our friend was even visiting, who had only been there for 2 days. And I was like, I'm so sorry, but we need to leave.
Oh, no.
So we left, and it was actually pretty chaotic. Like, our flight was canceled originally, so we had to like stay at an airport hotel. The next day, someone on our flight was actually coughing, and they kicked them and their family off of the flight in order to fly us back to Toronto. Like, it was very like surreal, and just kind of, it all sort of like happened very quickly, and like I was very panicked, and I kind of assumed, okay, like I've been stuck in an airport for like 2 days, been on this airplane with someone who's coughing. I'm probably gonna like get it. It's what I thought. So we came home, we quarantined very like severely. Like, I haven't left my house in 16 days. Like, my parents brought me food, and like I looked at them through the glass, and like I must say, like, it at first, you know, there's like that honeymoon phase kind of. It's like, you know, like, oh, I can finally like read my book. And like, I'm like, oh, I'm like reading screenplays. Gonna be like, I'm gonna write a screenplay. Like just like, you know, doing like all this stuff. But my sister is actually a respiratory therapist. So she runs ventilators. She is like fully frontline, like working in the hospital. So I'm like, my honeymoon phase is over. I am now, you know, deep into research. We're making lots of videos about what's going on. I'm really scared. I'm scared for my sister. I'm over it. Like the honeymoon phase is gone. Like I don't need to write a screenplay. Like a screenplay about what? You know? And then, yeah, I'm starting to place bets with like all my friends. I'd love to hear your opinion on this bet too, which is like, what day do we predict that we will be able to eat in a restaurant? And a lot of the dates coming in are like very interesting. They're quite a ways away, like some in September, some in August. That's like the earliest we have is June. So it's like starting to have those types of conversations make, I think, the fact my honeymoon phase is over. This is extremely serious. And I'm feeling not okay. If you'd asked me a week ago, I would have been like, this is freaking sick. But now I'm like, no, like I literally, this is very, very serious. But yeah.
Absolutely. For me, July 24th.
Ooh, okay.
Put me down for July 24th.
I will. So how this works is that if you are the closest person, we go for a meal and you don't have to pay for it.
Oh.
So I'll be taking you out if it.
Yes, I love that. Yes, definitely put me down for July 24th.
Wherever she wants to go, we're going.
It's
July
on the
24th.
record now. So can you give us an idea of your career and sort of what you do with ASAP Science?
Yeah, okay. So like, it is very, like, so we met each other through doing comedy in Toronto, and it is very interesting because I really fell into what I do right now. So right now I'm doing air quotes. If anyone can see me right now, I'm a YouTuber. And so I was a science teacher about 8 years ago. I went to school, got a degree in biochemistry and also a minor in visual art. Like I love to paint and make art. And so
I didn't know that about you.
Yeah. So those were like my passions. And so my dream was to become a science teacher and maybe even have like one side class where I got to teach art. That was like my lifelong dream. And so that like started to come to fruition. I actually went and taught for a year in the UK, but simultaneously, like while teaching and hanging out with kids, I was like, so what do you cool kids do these days? And they were like, we watch YouTube. And I was like, what is that? Like, I didn't really know what it was. And also like I would use science videos in the classroom a lot. And then like the kids would actually like stop talking, even if they just saw the YouTube like video platform. Cause it was like, to them, it meant like fun or like entertaining. And I was like, weird, this is so weird. So because I like had a visual art background, like I knew how to like draw and like create visual things. And then my boyfriend, not husband, I'm against the institution of marriage. My current boyfriend, still boyfriend, he's really good at like editing audio and video. And that was sort of a passion of his, also has a degree in science. And so we both started talking and I was like, you know, after university, like you're not forced to learn. That's something that kind of scared me. Like if I just teach like, you know, grade 9, 10, 11 biology the rest of my life, I'm not going to be keeping up to date with what's going on in science. I'm not going to like keep learning. So it was like a weird project to kind of like keep myself in the know about science / kind of knew that like maybe it could be a thing. We started making videos explaining science to people, trying to make science like cool and queer and like young. And it's like, you know, it's about like drinking. It's like the science of why you get a hangover, like the scientific reason why you should take naps and like all these things. And it kind of started to go viral almost immediately. And then we became quote unquote YouTubers. And now I've been doing it for 8 years. It's like my full-time job. It's like we have a team and like, it's just, I mean, it's crazy to like start that story and just wrap and then be like, and then we did it for 8 years. But like, honestly, it's just like crazy. And I feel so fortunate and so lucky to take my passion, which was teaching science, and actually like turn it into something that's like, you know, this crazy sort of like idealized job that a lot of people have, and it affords me a lot of amazing opportunities. But I do really miss teaching, and me getting into comedy was sort of trying to figure out how to keep science entertaining. I was like, if I don't sort of keep one foot in like the world of entertainment and like learning from you and all these people who are really talented at like making jokes and creating entertainment for entertainment's sake, I'm trying to like just sort of like piece that apart and try and bring it into the world of science to hopefully make my science communication better. But then comedy is a whole other thing. You kind of get swept up in it, and all of a sudden you're just like talking about weird shit all the time. And like, it's just like, sometimes I'm like, Greg, remember why you're doing this, you know? But it's a fascinating and like amazing community to like see. And I never really thought of myself as working in the entertainment industry, like until I started doing comedy and was like, oh yeah, like that's what I do. Like this is, you know, entertainment is an industry. Like, I don't know if that's even what you asked, but that's just the story.
No, that's fantastic. That's really good. And it's really insightful to see how that sort of pieced together, because I feel like a lot of people go into a performance art or a genre with the intention of just like, I'm going to try to make it as a YouTuber, and without that sort of background passion, or like, I'm going to try to be a comedian and not have that internal voice to inform your comedy. And I think that's what I found really special and adorable almost in your comedy back when you were performing, was that you would be talking about like your body or weird queer stuff, and then be like, oh, right, back to whales.
Yeah. I know, that's so funny. It's like how disjointed it feels. It's like, yeah, comedy is so challenging. I really, really love it because it's so challenging. Because yeah, it is like, you just sort of like fully explained what I go through when I'm like on stage doing comedy. I'm like, I'm queer. Oh, fuck. No, wait. Do you want to know about your lungs?
We need to talk about, and it's funny that you mentioned the episode where you explain the science of hangovers, because that's the first episode of ASAP Science that I watched.
Oh, wow.
The very first one,
Very, very important one. I still go back to that every Saturday morning.
Every Saturday. So you have a very full schedule then, with like production and writing, and you do all the research and everything as well. I think that's amazing.
Well, we had a team of 4 employees, and then we grew it for about 5 years, and then in the last year we had sort of a reckoning. Like, it was tough, like running a small office, like there was no way for the employees to like move up the ladder or whatever. Like, we had a hard time motivating them. They had like a really sweet, cushy job, and we were trying to like change everything. Like, we really wanted to start focusing on climate change. We wanted to change the way we make our videos. It didn't really like work. So we actually stopped with that. We no longer have an office. We just work from home. It's just me and Mitch, and we make way less videos. We've sort of like completely changed the way that we make them. So yeah, now we do all the research, all the drawing, all the editing again. So we do it all ourselves now, which is amazing. It's like, it feels like we've turned a new leaf, but now we're living through a global pandemic, and our channel is fully talking about that. And so I have a weird perspective on everything right now, because my job has not been affected. In fact, it's been quite like enhanced. It's like, we've been making videos about viruses for years. No one gives a shit. And then now we make a video about a virus and people are watching it. So it is like interesting. Like, I feel really bad because I'm like, you know, I know so many people, this is becoming a really big issue for them. Whereas I'm like, we need to make these videos right now. People are genuinely understanding how a virus works. Like, I'm obsessed with that. And so it's like, as much as that is the case, I must say it's very hard to do work while in a pandemic. And I'll give you some signs right now, which is that really interesting study. There's not that many studies that have been done, but there are a few that were done in Hong Kong about self-isolation and quarantine that happened during SARS, when it really took over primarily Hong Kong. It was pretty bad in Toronto too, but we never self-isolated. And in studying the people in Hong Kong for about a year, drinking alcohol increased. So if you're at home having more drinks than you would if you weren't in a pandemic, that is literally seen in past examples. I'm currently drinking wine. People who actually have families were more stressed than people who had, the larger your family was, the more stressed you were, which was kind of interesting. Like being single or maybe just having one primary partner made you a little less stressed because it's like, you know, your ecosystem's a lot smaller. You have less people to worry about.
Right. You're not managing a huge household.
Exactly. And, you know, there's less people leaving and coming back. Like the actual way to sort of contract the virus is a lot smaller. I thought that was interesting for people who maybe are single and self-isolating and feeling lonely. That's obviously a huge challenge, but it's also, you know, a little nice to think of the other side, which is like the larger your family, like literally the more stressed you might be and the more dangerous that might be. But one overall thing was that people had an extremely hard time focusing on work. And so I think that's something I've definitely noticed, as much as people are literally tweeting us all the time being like, answer this. Any other time in the year, we'd be like, let's do this. But it's just hard right now. You're just like, you know, like I'm just like, my brain is like overrun with like doomsday scenarios and existential dread. Like I'm an atheist. I'm like, okay, I need to freaking find some spirituality.
So essentially, if you're a single, unemployed alcoholic, you're safe. So I can stop worrying about my father. I love this.
Yeah. Not even less safe. It's more like in a pandemic. It's like, okay, you do you. That's what we're all going to become. You're now our guiding light. You're the person we look up to.
I love that.
Pandemic goals.
Yes. So what I usually like to talk about with guests is how people who typically perform on stages are sort of adapting their mediums to more online projects and things like that. Can you tell me, as somebody who's been on an online medium for 8 years now, do you have any advice for people who are just starting to break into like YouTube or podcasting, or is there any wisdom that you can share?
I mean, like, listen to these wide words, folks.
Gather round, children.
Gather round, children. I wouldn't. Yes. Okay. Obviously. So this is one thing that I've been thinking about this, especially like looking at comedians in Toronto. I think this is an amazing opportunity to be forced to do something that I always thought all comedians in Toronto should be doing. So it is a lot of work what we do to put into these ASAP Science videos. And the way I can relate to everyone is that I know how to make an ASAP Science video. I know how to do the research. I know how to do the drawing. I know how to sit in front of a camera, talk to it naturally, blah. That I've crafted, and that's easy for me, and I do that. And to other people, they might be like, wow, look at him. He's doing things online. But it's like, that's just something I've been doing for a long time. To me, that's the norm, and it has worked. But I do relate to that sort of like crippling fear of doing something new. So I just want to, before I keep going and sound like I'm lecturing people, I just want to be like, I totally understand that it can be really scary to like start doing something online and the judgment. And we've had to deal with like awful, awful things because of what we've done, but so many good too. But I really feel like there's so many talented comedians. And the more that I spend time in Los Angeles with these people who are really, you know, baked into the entertainment industry, they're all figuring out how they utilize every platform, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, like they're all filming themselves like prior to this pandemic even. And a lot of people, I think we all know, you know, we have lots of examples of people who have like gone viral with these videos or these things that they're doing online while simultaneously doing comedy. But it's actually those things they're doing online that are giving them the career that they might have wanted to get from getting like Just for Laughs or whatever. Like to me, Just for Laughs is like the biggest joke. Lols, no pun intended. Did you know that Just for Laughs emails are at ha.com?
Yes.
Isn't that so corny? It's like, okay, I can't take this seriously. Like, are you serious? It's like, no, but like relax. So now we live in a time where I genuinely think that your career as a comedian will be shaped much more by something you do online rather than something you do at JFL. I think it's a good example of something everyone kind of like freaks out about. And so I think this is a good opportunity to force people to do the things that I think everyone should be doing while they're doing comedy, if what they're wanting is sort of, I don't know, success or whatever that means to you. I think I'm sort of choosing to say that success is one specific thing, which it isn't for everyone. To me, it means like, you know, numbers, and I don't know. It's so different for everyone, but I think this is
exposure,
a really cool
and
exposure, like
recognition.
I don't even know.
Yeah.
And so I think that, like, even you starting this podcast, that's great. TikTok is the thing I've been wanting to say to so many comedians, but I don't have the, you know, heart. I don't want to come in anywhere and be like, this is what you should do, because like I don't think I have the experience or ability to say that. But it's a really interesting medium, because one of the biggest fears I think I have with like trying something new is like the judgment you get from your close friends. Like I genuinely care the most about my friends and my family, and like that's just the way I live my life. And so I want to do things good by them. That's why I want to make science videos. I want to make things that are meaningful. But so TikTok is just one example of a place that we have done a lot of like experimental things on ASAP Science, and they've done really well. But like no one we know knows I'm on TikTok. So like now I'd say is the time. No comedian doesn't have a reason to try and make videos on TikTok. It's comedy. The things that do well on TikTok is comedy. And so like, I just think this is the great opportunity for people to thrive and to grow in different ways.
Right. And I totally agree. It's giving us an opportunity, or maybe even forcing, you know, nudging our hand to embracing these new platforms where we've been so hesitant. And I know I'm seeing so many people who were really against doing anything online because it's not stand-up. You know, people who are YouTubers, when like a YouTuber is booked for a stand-up show, you hear from all of the comics that it's like, oh, they're not a stand-up though. Like there is a difference to the craft, but I'm seeing a lot of people trying to directly translate their stand-up to YouTube or to TikTok or to Facebook Live.
Yeah.
And it doesn't translate. So they need to learn to adapt that as well. And all you're doing is learning new skills and exercising muscles and putting those into a more well-rounded career, I think.
So I totally think that is true. And I wasn't really fully aware of that. Like as someone who is a quote unquote YouTuber, like because
but we love you.
No, I'm just saying this is interesting because it's like, because the thing I do on YouTube is like science oriented, it's put me in a completely different category from like a lot of YouTubers who, you know, maybe do quote unquote comedy videos and who like people have opinions on, which is like kind of funny because I'm like, I might have those same opinions on those YouTubers. But there really is a beautiful art and craft to stand up. And to be honest, the one thing I notice about a lot of online people is that they don't have the actual like humor and like chops behind them. Like with the amazing and immense talent that I see across comedians in Toronto, I'm like, that's the hard part is what everyone has, you know what I mean? Which is that ability to be hilarious and to write jokes. Like that is the hardest part. Mm-hmm. Like transferring that to a new medium is going to be weird. It's going to be a challenge, but they've put in more. Like the people who are successful online, I'm like, they've done the easier part. You know what I mean? It's like, it is easier to do. It might not seem like it because you're seeing all this success and fame and money or whatever, but like they're just utilizing these things like really well. And one thing I'll say about TikTok is that it's the only place I've actually just talked to the camera and said my stand-up jokes and they've like gone crazy viral. So it's like, TikTok is just literally designed to, if you can hold people's attention and give them a release, it's like literally what a joke is, you know what I mean? If you can give them a platform and they know that something's coming and you switch it and you give them a release, it will do well on TikTok. And so that's just one thing I'd say is that I've actually like just said my, people subscribe to our TikTok because they want ASAP Science and like my jokes are about science. So it's like,
absolutely,
maybe, like,
yeah.
It's into some world, but I have done things and then I've done my stand-up jokes, and my stand-up jokes, if you look at our TikTok, you'll see they have like way, way, way more views and comments. It's like, you know what I mean? The work you've put in, you've tested it with audiences, that means it works. And now I'm like, pandemic, let's do it, people. I have a circle light, I'll ship it to you.
Yeah, I just downloaded TikTok like a week ago. I was so hesitant because I'm like, this is the worst thing. And seeing like the terrible TikTok videos that people will share.
Like a little damn. But have you seen the hilarious ones?
I've seen some of the hilarious ones, and honestly, Trisha and I go to bed at night and we scroll through TikTok until we.
Yes, I know. Me too. That's an important part of it. You have to immerse yourself in it before you start making the videos. But some of them, these kids, these queer little kids, are freaking hilarious.
Yes, it's my drama class all over again. I see so many of those archetypes on there, and I love it to death. Yeah, and there are some people who are doing really great things with it, like in Toronto comedy. So I'm sure those words are going to resonate to them very well. Yeah, thank you so much for all of that insight. I have one last thing. So for listeners, obviously people. Encouraging people to check out ASAP Science because it's an incredible thing that you're doing. Is there any other way that you feel that audiences can help support performers and content creators during this time?
Yeah, like that's the interesting part. I think the part that I'm like really feeling like I'm disconnected from is that feel like obviously I miss the comedy community and I miss being on stage and like being around people. It's a really beautiful community to be a part of, but it was never something that I relied on. And I was quite frankly never being like booked enough to ever really make that much money, that it's not something that I thought of like, oh, now it's gone financially. I only ever really thought, oh, now this thing I really love to do is gone. Mm-hmm. So it's really hard. And I think personally, I'm in a situation in a financial position, like as someone who planned to be a teacher, now YouTuber, I make more money than I ever expected to in my life. And I like to make sure people know that, because I do think a lot of people pretend and that YouTuber, like people don't realize how much money YouTubers make. Like we're paid by Google, like we're paid by one of the biggest monopolies in the world. Like we're fine.
Like you're good. Yeah.
Yeah. So I am not personally someone who needs to be helped at all in this time, but I do really understand the stress that comedians and performers are under. And even what Sandra is doing is so important because it's so often overlooked as an art form, as a medium. And that what Sandra talks about is so freaking true. And so much of this arts funding goes to visual art even. Like as someone who was obsessed with visual art, that's what people rely on. They get all this funding all the time and they're just like making paintings alone. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm like, at least like comedy is like entertaining people and like making people question things and think. And so I think honestly, right now, I'm like, I think it's important that comedians figure out how to pivot to online. There's a lot of money and financial ways to make money there. Grow your following, grow who you are. Like, as you said, flex new muscles. Those are important muscles in this like ever evolving world that we live in, which I think will always be really important maybe for your personal journey, and financially, like I do think what people have been doing, like going live on Instagram, like I've been watching those. Like it's fun, like, and having people like with the like sort of links to actually go in and support these artists. I think that's really important to do right now. If you
links to donate and throw a few dollars in, or links to people's Patreon accounts, or
for sure. But I can see why that isn't going to last, and that's why in my head I just think like Toronto comedians, if you're listening, like. This is the time. Make the Twitter video. Make the Instagram video. If you're too scared because people are going to see it, make the TikTok video because no one's going to see it.
Yes.
and play with what works there. And like also don't fall into the trap that I fall into, which is thinking that people are going to judge your Twitter or Instagram video. Like I love watching everyone's Twitter and Instagram videos.
Yeah,
like just do it. Yeah, no, I think that's so true. And I was going to say, I know that people are like shit on YouTubers and like maybe don't want to become a YouTuber, but that you can literally start making money right now if you start to gain an audience that, you know, if a pandemic isn't going to be the time, it never will, but you could
what else is getting in your way? Yeah.
Yes. I'll do my little YouTube speech. Consistency is key. Come back every Wednesday. Just say that at the end of it. Tell people to subscribe. And then, like I said earlier, like I had a passion for science. If your passion is comedy, what is your comedy voice? Base your YouTube channel off of that. Just try experimenting with it. No longer are YouTube comedians going to just be able to put their stand-up sets on YouTube, which was always a bad idea. Like that's not going to work. Now you're going to have to figure out what that other thing is. Become a YouTuber. I hope when I leave this house in the pandemic, I have some new YouTuber comrades in the comedy scene.
Yes, I would love that.
I'm glad you're doing this, though. I'm glad you're doing this podcast. It's a great idea.
Yeah, and it's been so much fun, and I'm hoping it lasts beyond, because I do want to. I always felt that there was something missing in the Toronto stand-up community about embracing new technologies, and people have been so resistant for like a decade now. To like adapt their work online. And I'm really excited and invested in projects that people are doing that are pushing those envelopes.
That's so cool, yeah.
And
awesome.
Ways that people are being innovative. So I hope this podcast down the line, like once everything goes back to, I hate saying back to normal, because culturally I don't think it's going to be normal.
Things are going to be different, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be different, but I want to be able to still explore people who are doing great and innovative things online.
Well, July 24th is the date you have chosen.
Yes.
So you have until July 24th for this podcast to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And then after that date, I still think it would make sense, because I'm also so fascinated about how this Corona shift, as you put it, is going to lead into when we are eventually out of lockdown. Like supply chains, like everything is going to be so freaking like different for a bit, until everyone, just goes back to like sucking capitalism's dick. And then we feel the same way we feel now because of climate change. But,
oh, the good old days. Yeah. So what is next for you? What's happening in the future with ASAP Science and with you and Mitch?
Well, we have I'll give you I don't know when this is coming out, but our next video, we have our 4 videos lined up. So the one coming out on Wednesday is about antiviral medication. And it's like, is the cure for COVID-19 going to be with antivirals? So I've done all this research about antiviral medication. So that video is going to explain what happens when you take antivirals. The one after that is about hand washing versus hand sanitizer. The one after that is about your brain on quarantine. So how this is affecting your brain.
I love it.
And the one after that is a toothbrushing song sponsored by Sensodyne.
Oh, so cool.
So that is my next month. But with podcast, we have a podcast called Side Note by ASAP Science that we release in tandem with the videos. That sort of is just us freely speaking about everything that we've learned. So that's what we're doing for the next month. But, everything is changing. So we honestly don't know. Like, we had our main focus on our channel was to talk about climate change, and we were working on a documentary in LA about where all the products that we use come from and how climate change affects that. But that's all on hold. The whole entertainment industry and like Los Angeles has like completely shut down. And climate change, like, sadly, our brains just can't, we don't have the intellectual capacity to think about that right now. But one thing I'm really focusing on is how we ensure that fucked up, literal evil dictators like Donald Trump don't utilize this situation to make things worse for climate change, which he's currently trying to do. This is like a huge opportunity for us to shift the way that we do things in order to mitigate the next global crisis, which is the climate crisis. So I'm trying to figure out how to properly talk about those things right now and make sure that we don't forget that, like, once this ends, like, the true fear that we're all dealing with right now will happen again in about 20 years when the climate crisis is so bad and we all go, oh wait, we should have listened to scientists. Like, no shit, because guess what we should have done right now? Listen to scientists. Anyway, the vaccine hesitancy and anti-vax movement, I think, will be abolished through this, as we all go, where's the vaccine?
Yeah,
like, there's little things and just like that feeling like drives me fucking crazy. Like, Donald Trump's just defunded science for 3 years, and now he's getting on the podium being like, so scientists, like, snip, snap, where is it at? Where are the antivirals? It's like, fuck you.
Oh,
so
now you like us?
Yeah, so I'm like, I do think that the general public is going to, be like, okay, wait, so what exactly are scientists saying right now? And they're going to be like, climate change, you fuckers. And we're all going to get mine. That's my dream.
There will be a renewed interest in science and pure reason where I feel like we have lost that in the last decade or so.
Yes, we
So hopefully, yeah.
I hope that too. And I hope you're staying safe, stay inside. Everyone, if you can, your job doesn't involve being on the front lines, stay the fuck at home.
Yeah, and we can end on a positive note. I like that.
That was positive, right? Or are you about to say something positive? Oh, okay.
No, that was positive.
Okay, that was positive? Okay, cool. Okay.
Yeah, that was great. And we're perfectly on time. I love it. That was
awesome.
This was
nice
such a really great chat and a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me and for all of your insight and your wisdom. And
So now I'm going to click leave meeting. Is that all I do?
And that's our show. We did it. Episode 2. So listen to your Uncle Greg and go out and make some YouTube videos. And please don't find me on TikTok. It's embarrassing. Seriously. Before we finish up, I just want to thank Vale for contributing to my Patreon. Thank you so much. Every contribution will support the creation of more episodes of this show and other really fun content. Please take a minute to check out my Patreon, where you can find early access to this podcast, a bunch of exclusive content, and a behind-the-scenes look at all of the cool things that I'm working on. I have a lot of really fun writing projects right now. I have some interviews and some photo shoots and other really fun stuff. One thing that I'm really excited to be working on is an online talk show that I'm developing. It's going to be called In Spite Of with Mike and Alice. Comedian Mike Payne and I will host special segments and guest comics in this really fun, silly show, and we banter and we chat. We're so cute. You've got to check it out. So watch out for that in the next week or so. And until next week, I'm Alice Rose, and this is The Corona Shift. Stay safe, wash your hands, and keep creating.
Oh, shoot. Did that close?
No?
Oh, sorry. Oh my God, I just closed it on my computer. So you can still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh my God, so you just had like, okay. I literally just turned bright red and was about to be like, man, help me.
And just
sorry.
Hung up on me. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, hearing your voice was like the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. I was like, okay, I didn't screw it up.